Greetings everyone, this is Rambling Collector here, and welcome back for another book review. Now, for this video, it's going to be a little bit more special because we are going to be doing a double book review of the books Sidekick and Hero by R.I. Polsgrove, books 2 and 3 of the Young Heroes and Villains trilogy. Therefore, we'll be rounding out the series with these two together, and if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I have practically covered nearly all of R.I. Polsgrove's works by this point, especially with Villain, which I thoroughly enjoyed for it being a nice little departure, as well as being a superhero novel, something that is a rarity as of right now, that does not deal with Marvel or DC Comics. Now, Villain itself was rather enjoyable, but I figured it was about time I dove into Sidekick and Hero, with both of them being slightly smaller books. But, with that being said, let's get started with Sidekick, shall we? So, for Sidekick, first and foremost, we switch the point of view character from Vesper in the first book to a new character, Steve, a young boy who gets involved with the superhero life through his best friend being the hero Blue Laser. Now, for those of you who have read Villain at the time of this video, Blue Laser was a reoccurring character within Vesper's POV within Villain, whom at first served as an inspiration for her to become a hero, but later on serves as more of an obstacle when she goes on to serve with the villainous side. Now, Blue Laser will be dove into a lot more, which is something I really enjoyed throughout this particular book, but with Steve, he definitely was a very fun little POV character. And in some cases, he can be relatable to any reader who's ever felt overlooked by the world, struggling to be seen for who they are, because that is a major reoccurring struggle for Steve throughout Book 2 and Book 3, with him wishing to stand out and simply be seen for his own individual accomplishments. And unfortunately, this leads to a very severe inferiority complex that we see with him. And it does become a problem throughout the books. At some point or another, oftentimes he will feel like he is on top of the world, but then of course that inferiority complex will rear its head in some of the nastier ways. But, that being said, this book also provided a look into the internal workings of Endura, showcasing how they function as well as how employees are kept under the corporation's thumb, which we see through Steve's eyes as an insider throughout the story. Now, one thing I will say that I did like about this is that we really do get to see what Endura is up to, the experimentations with superheroes, how they function, some of the different scientific experiments that they run throughout their entire facility, just how deeply their claws sink into the world, and it is very, very deep, to say the least. I loved the whole progression of the story, where as Steve is continuously trying to dig deeper and deeper into Endura's encrypted files, their security continues to ramp up further and further, to the point of them even having a video camera over Steve's desk as if to say, hey, we see what you're doing, we've got our eye on you, knock it off and quit digging into things you're not supposed to be doing. And quite frankly, I definitely enjoyed that, but also a little bit of a romance that occurred between Steve and Vesper as they got to know each other more. I definitely liked that, but more so, this focuses more on the friendship and the falling out of it that occurs between Steve and Austin, because Austin feels indebted to Endura for providing him and his family with the means to live and survive, practically giving him everything. And to him, Steve is interfering with that and causing problems. He does not want that or refuses to see it. Which, one major thing was that they really went out of their way to make Austin seem like a more unlikable character as the book went on. But this actually ties into Book 3, which let's get to talking about that now. Now, for Book 3, Hero. This one switches up the POV again, switching between multiple perspectives, primarily Steve and Vesper from the previous books, but a new third POV, that being Austin, aka Blue Laser. Now, I will say I was surprised to see Austin actually gaining a point of view new perspective in a few chapters, but with that, we really do get to see what's going on with his home life, with him being the son of two heroes, but also him actually coming to terms with the fact that Endura is not this shining beacon that he had been led to believe his entire life, and how, for all intents and purposes, he has been both an experiment and a weapon to enforce the rules of Endura upon others. But I did think it was a little odd how we finally get to see his perspective of how he had to put his foot down and act out the way he did towards Steve, whereas in the previous book, from Steve's point of view, Austin is getting more and more antagonistic, and it was downright to the point where you would wind up hating the character, which I do feel would cause a bit of problems, but with this third book, you do gain his perspective, which does lighten the hate just a little bit, at least in my opinion. That is entirely up to the reader, though. And I will say, their whole team up to take down Endura was definitely interesting, to say the least. How they managed to sneak in, assault the main building, gain the data they needed, and run to the FBI to uncover them. But I will say, while I was pleased with how the story ended, I actually found myself craving for more from the book, wanting to see more of the world this series had been building. Then again, that could just be me as an avid reader and a sucker for lore, but I really did want to see more, especially with book 3 being very, very small at only 115 pages. However, I can also understand that this series is meant for young adults, so I'm not too salty about it. But again, I would honestly love to see more from this little world being built, because superhero novels are a rarity, just to put that out there. But I will say, Austin definitely did grow on me throughout the book. He was an interesting perspective. How we see a young boy having to go against the very system he had been a part of his whole life, all to do the right thing, which definitely made him a lot more compelling, I should say. I will say, again, like I mentioned before, seeing him as a growing antagonist from Steve's perspective and Sidekick was definitely a hard thing to see. And if you read them back to back, it's almost a bit of whiplash. But I do think having him as a point of view character did make this interesting. I just honestly wish the book was longer. Now, for my random thoughts here for a little bit, just to rave a little bit. I honestly had really enjoyed this trilogy. While it is short and meant for kids, I do understand that much. It honestly has left me craving for more for superhero novels, because up until now, the only major superhero novels that I can list off are about 6 off the top of my head. And if you've been following my channel for a while, you will know some of them, such as Victor Boone Will Save Us by David Joel Stevenson, as well as No More Heroes, a short story or a collection written by various different authors, both of which were amazingly well done. Now this one here, I feel, really harkens back to another children's series that I had remembered growing up with and reading, that being Captain Underpants by Dav Pilkey. I hope I did not butcher that name. If I did, please feel to let me know in the comments. But I feel like, at the very least, having that mix of more adult, but also child-focused, or at least young adult-focused novels really does help create a little bit more of diversity within the superhero novel community, because, again, more often than not, we see most superhero stories being told from Marvel and DC, and seeing more of them has definitely been a nice little change of pace, especially because they offer more unique looks into how superheroes can function, how villains can uprise, how superheroes can be molded and changed, offering a more scientific way in gene splicing. Stuff like this is why I really enjoy the indie author community and coming up with so many unique and different ideas. With that being said, let's move on to the final score, shall we? So, Sidekick, I would give an honest 9 out of 10, simply because I loved how we got to see a relatable character with Steve, With Hero, I'll have to give it an 8 out of 10 simply because it left me craving for more, even with its small size. And that is a definite positive, but I feel like there could be more with it. At least that's just my honest opinion. Now, you can argue that would probably be stretching out the story, especially for something that's meant for young adults to children, but again, there's never really any excuse to not have more, in my opinion. And honestly, even then, just having that craving for more just goes to show how well written a story can be. If you want more from a world, that just means it was well written, at least in my opinion. Anyways, I hope you all did enjoy this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and let me know if you've read these books yourself. I would love to know your thoughts on what you thought of the books yourselves. More than that, though, if you really want to check out some of the other books that I've covered, including No More Heroes, as well as Victor Boom Will Save Us, along with the Young Heroes and Villains trilogy, I will leave a link to the playlist here at the end of the video for all the independent authors that I've covered. Or, if you simply wish to know more about R.I. Polsgrove, then I will leave a link to their playlist as well. That way you can check out some more of their works and see which ones will really suit you. I feel like they have a little bit of something for everybody. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed this video. Feel free to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and subscribe if you're interested for more. This is Rambling Collector, signing off for now, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day, fellow readers.